Sonic has been a bit of a blind spot in my gaming experience for a while now. But today that changes, thanks to my patrons who voted for me to do a Sonic Frontiers video. So thank you patrons for helping me to expand my horizons. And if any of you want to have a say in future video topics, one such poll is going on right now, which any $5 or $15 tier patrons can vote in. But let's get to it. Is it possible to beat Sonic Frontiers without boosting? Our rules today are pretty simple. We're trying to beat Sonic Frontiers without boosting, which for our purposes means we're banning all uses of ZR during gameplay, as that is the boost button. As for implications, this means that firstly we'll be stuck going fairly slowly, which may prove to be a problem when a not insignificant amount of the objectives in this game rely on speed. But also we won't be able to clear as much distance while airborne or wall run. But hopefully we can manage regardless. Let's get started by taking on Aries Island. For once, the tutorial area is actually extremely easy for us to get through, as it's not very pushy with trying to foist specific mechanics upon us. Now we're unleashed on the rest of the island, where honestly, this game is a bit less straightforward to talk about than what I normally cover, given the fact that its structure is very open. Progression-wise, what you have to do on any given island is defeat bosses, which give you gears, which unlock levels, which give you keys for just straight up beating them with enough rings, beating them with the red rings, and beating them fast enough, as well as doing all of the above. Those keys then unlock Chaos Emeralds, which once you obtain 6, you can then use to challenge the island's Titan. In addition to that, you have to find memory tokens to unlock various scenes, which also give you Chaos Emeralds. Now, of those progression steps, only getting to and acquiring the Chaos Emeralds, whether they're behind key-locked containment units or the scenes unlocked by memory tokens, are non-fungible, we'll say. That is to say that there are so many different opportunities to get gears, keys, and memory tokens that no one instance of them is absolutely necessary to get. Which is great for us, as that enables us a lot of flexibility with what challenges we want to attempt, and which we can leave be. What I will say, though, is that beating bosses for gears is generally pretty easy, and the ones that aren't can be easily ignored, so we won't be focusing much on them. Additionally, the memory tokens are so plentiful, and in the case of many of them, really easy to get, that these I won't discuss much either. What may in fact prove to be roadblocks are Chaos Emeralds and keys, so that is where our focus will be in this video. 1 of 3 is the first Cyberspace level that I really try to focus on getting the bonus objectives in. Just a hunch, but getting 7 keys from level is probably better than merely beating it and getting 1. And yeah, this one is really easy. I was worried that a lack of speed would be an issue for getting the speed bonus, but when the level has so many speed boosting elements in it, which are legal for us to use, it's not actually that much of a hindrance. We get all 4 objectives in one go on this level. That unlocks our first Chaos Emerald, which can be obtained quite easily. Then this mandatory boss fight is mostly just homing attacks, which is okay by me. After wandering around a bit, I enter 1-5, where speed ends up being a sticking point. Without boosting, any slight hiccup is sufficient to doom the whole attempt. But if you always take the shortcuts and you never make mistakes, you can do it. Next up is rounding up these Cocos for Amy, which I don't think boosting would have been particularly useful for anyway. Then we acquire another Chaos Emerald, and after that, it's lawn maintenance, which again, I don't think boosting would have been much use during. I finally stumbled upon 1-6, where again, surprise surprise, speed is the main holdup. That being said, level design in this one helps a lot less with getting to or maintaining speed without boosting, so I only ended up getting 3 keys from this level. Luckily 1-4 was around to pick up the slack, but on this one too, I wasn't getting particularly close to S rank, so again, I settled for 3 keys. But no matter, that's enough to unlock the last contained Chaos Emerald, and now after a little light puzzle, which obviously has nothing to do with boosting, we're ready to face Giganto. The beginning of the boss fight has us climbing the Titan, which is slower than usual, but helped by the fact that these blue rings do a lot of the work for you. Once we've got the last emerald, the supersonic portion of the fight is no problem whatsoever. Aries Island is next for us to conquer, and I know I wasn't going to talk much about overworld bosses, but this one is so annoying without boosting. Not impossible though. 2-1 is super easy, as is acquiring the blue Chaos Emerald. So is the first encounter with the Titan, which, though it involves a lot of running, technically doesn't involve any boosting. Somehow 2-4 is the next level I tried, which I cleared every objective of first try. Getting the next Chaos Emerald involved trekking across this confusing island, but certainly didn't require boosting. Next up, helping these Cocos is pretty easy, with some patience. The next level I encounter is 2-7, which I must unfortunately conclude to be impossible on account of this section where the ground crumbles beneath your feet around this pillar. The only way to survive this section would be by boosting, so oh well. I guess we'll have to make up for those keys elsewhere. And speaking of, I finally found 2-3. This is possible, but again, speed proves to be an issue. Ended up being off from S rank by less than a second, but couldn't quite bridge the gap. So only 3 keys from here. Next up is more corralling of the Cocos, followed by a timed fight against multiple towers. Now, one way to take down towers is by beating on them mercilessly until they're down to your level. You can't do that here, as you can barely take down one tower in the allotted time that way, let alone the 4 present. What you're meant to do is wall run up to their heads directly. We of course can't do that, and are instead stuck climbing, which isn't as slow as the previous method, but certainly isn't fast enough. So, is this where we're forced to boost? Perhaps not, because there is a way to speed up your climbing without resorting to wall running. Jumping. If you simply jump while climbing, you scale the towers much quicker. It's still close, but using this method you can beat the towers on time. After that, I found that I needed more keys to unlock the next Chaos Emerald, so I went back to 2-3 and actually cleared it with an S rank. I also found 2-6, where, big surprise, clear time was once again our white whale. And so yeah, I wasn't even close on this one, so I just took my 3 keys and left. In any case, we finally have enough keys to unlock the next Chaos Emerald, though this one was basically hidden behind an entire level-like structure, but a fairly easy one, so no problems here. I used a claw machine, then painstakingly climbed a tower to finally face Wyvern. I was worried about this opening section, as normal Sonic I thought might not be fast enough to keep up with the path. Luckily, such concerns were unfounded. It was actually pretty easy. Then finally, the supersonic section probably would have gone faster with the ability to boost, but a boost was far from necessary, especially in light of all of the rings present during the fight. So now, it's time to move on to Chaos Island. Our introduction to Chaos Island's levels in 3-1 goes pretty smoothly. What goes a bit less smoothly is trying to acquire the first Chaos Emerald. Specifically, as you grind along this rail to get to the island it's on, you come across this part where you have to boost to get across the gap. Or do you? As it turns out, a simple dodge can do the trick just as well. But we're not out of the woods yet. This part here is a bit finicky, but just requires some precision to best. And then there's this segment on another rail path we have to take in order to get to the Chaos Emerald. And this time, dodging is most certainly not going to work. To clear this gap, we have to boost. But do we have to clear it? Perhaps not, because if you jump off the rail at this segment and land on what would normally be the return rail and dodge some of its one-way speed boosts, you can make it to the island that the Chaos Emerald is on. So there we go. Obstacle completely subverted. And now we're faced with this island's Titan. Historically, such encounters haven't been an issue. But in the words of a contrarian financial analyst, this time it's different. Why, you may ask? Well, it's got a little something to do with this massive saw blade. Once you start using the squid to flee, there's no avoiding it without boosting. And seriously, I tried everything. Jumping, dodging, which is unfortunately unavailable during this sequence at all. I tried leveling up my speed, but nothing worked. Ultimately, this saw cannot be avoided without boosting. And therefore, we use a bit of boosting to get past this mandatory segment, and in so doing fail the challenge here. But hopefully we can keep it to a one-time thing. 3-5 is at least beatable, though I didn't manage to get an S rank. 3-2 goes the same way. Man, you really feel like a cripple going through this game without boosting. Unsurprisingly, playing Space Invaders isn't really impacted by the rules of the challenge, nor is obtaining the next Chaos Emerald. Next up is this minigame on a timer, but it's mostly spent smashing things as opposed to running about, so it's not too bad. 3-4 is yet another story of every objective being achievable, save for the speed one. The sheer quantity of levels where that's been the case on this island is starting to worry me. We may not be able to get the amount of keys we need to finish. But hey, at least we got another Chaos Emerald. Now, as for dealing with this bridge, via skydiving for some reason, we've got a problem. The problem is that the way to go fast in this gameplay mode, just like in all of the others, is by pressing ZR. You know, the button we're not allowed to push. Without being able to press it, we're stuck descending as slowly as possible, which, surprise, surprise, even if you avoid all the obstacles on the way down, that still makes you too slow to get to the bottom before the inexplicable time limit runs out. Seriously, remind me again why this is not a time limit, like, in-universe? Oh, whatever. So, are we resigned to another instance of boosting, then? Well, if there's not another way to go faster, I guess we have to. But there is another way. Aggressive use of the homing attack. There are some enemies and springs along the way that you can homing attack, which allows you to descend much faster than the normal skydiving controls would be. The key to finishing just in the nick of time is to always homing attack as soon as possible. I mean, like, before you even see the reticule, you should be pressing the button to homing attack. If you do that, you can finish with a not insignificant amount of time to spare. Anyway, apparently I need more keys to unlock the next Chaos Emerald, and unfortunately this island's levels haven't been kind to me on that front. But I still do have one more trick up my sleeve. Fishing. Yeah, so as it turns out, you can basically purchase anything you like in this game from Big the Cat with the proceeds from your fishing expeditions. Memory tokens, cocos, rings, and for our purposes now, a few more keys. And just like that, the Chaos Emerald has been acquired. Or, well, not quite yet. First, we've got to scale this nightmarish structure. Boosting would make it easier, while running would make it faster, but double jumping and dodging judiciously can leap you from wall to wall, until finally, the Emerald is ours. Now we've just got to play some pinball before facing night. A fight which boosting is certainly not necessary during. That brings us to Aries Island, where we simply have to scale 6 towers. Let's go. Tower 1 is extremely simple. No problems here. Tower 2 is more rail-based, which is fine until this jump, which is quite simply too far to make without boosting. Now, if this was a 2D section, we might be able to dodge in order to make up the difference. But this is a 3D section with the camera behind us, so a dodge would just veer us off course. Or so you'd think. Because here's the quite frankly wacky thing we can do. We can hold both bumpers to block mid-jump. This suspends Sonic in the air for as long as the buttons are pressed. Now we can freely turn the camera, and once we have it at a good angle, we release the block and dodge away, thus clearing the gap. But then we're immediately faced with an even larger gap, one that the blocking strategy is not even close to being able to overcome. Put simply, there is no possible way to bridge this gap without boosting. Okay. So we boost then? I'd rather not. Okay, how about this? What if we fundamentally altered the gap itself? Now you may be wondering what I mean by that. We're Sonic, the blue blur, not some omnipotent deity. That's right. But you know who are omnipotent deities in this realm? The game developers, and they left in the menus easy mode. And this is not your grandpa's easy mode that just lowers enemy damage and health. No. This easy mode changes the level designs. In this case, it adds a spring to this gap, thus allowing us to clear it, and after setting the difficulty back to normal, we complete the tower and move on with our life. Tower 3 is a lot more about climbing. An important thing to remember here is that you want to dodge before using your double jump, so you can actually cling onto the walls properly. Get that down and Tower 3 is yours. Next up is Tower 4, which is incredibly easy. Tower 5 is also of little difficulty. The big trouble with Tower 6 is this 3D wall climbing section where you have to transfer from one wall to another while changing angles. Get past that unspiked and the world's your oyster. So there we go. Now only one more island remains. Aries Island. Where, quite frankly, nothing mandatory comes even close difficulty-wise to the toughest part of Chaos Island, or those towers. That includes the fight against Supreme, which you just need some competence at blocking to excel at. And just like that, the game is over. And we have discovered that, no. It is not possible to beat Sonic Frontiers without boosting. All thanks to that one encounter with Knight. Oh well, it was still a good time regardless, and changed the tenor of the game quite a bit. A bit more slow, a bit puzzly, but still a fun experience. But anyways, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate a like or a subscription if you want to be notified of my future uploads, or if you really want to be notified without relying on YouTube's random whims, you might want to consider signing up for my email list in the description below. Additionally, this was my first Sonic challenge, so if you want to suggest any other Sonic games that would be good challenge material, I'm all ears. Oh, and of course, thank you to my patrons who in fact voted for this to be a video topic. If you want to participate in such polls, including one going on right now, you can join at the $5 level or higher. And of course, I'd like to give a special thank you to my $15 tier patron, Ashvin Says. But anyways guys, until next time, I've been Seamcraft, hoping to mine some more entertainment for your enjoyment. Goodbye.